So we're about to jump into the second portion of demos that are, again, going to be given out by Francisco, who's coming up next, and then Quartz, John O'Keefe. You can step up. But I'll hand it off directly to Francesco.
Good afternoon. My name is Francesco Rulli. I'm originally from Italy, so excuse my accent. We can skip this one. But let's say, back in 2004, I had, let me see here. Okay, let's go into my presentation here. I'll tell you about my journey. Back in 2004, I had a dinner with John Malkovich, the actor. We had a fashion company together. And he complained so much about, it was 3 years we were working together, about online film distribution for independent films. So in 2005, at the beginning of the year, I decided to call up my cousin, who is a programmer. I said, why don't we launch an online film distribution platform? A few months later, both YouTube and us launched. We were just focused on professional films. And we got to a point in which we had 40 million unique users per month. Back in 2010, NATO contacted me to distribute their videos on Filmonics, and I saw a video of a woman building a school in Afghanistan, so I told myself, I've never really done anything major, why not to build some classrooms there? So we built 13 of those, and we gave internet to 55,000 women in the region, and we took a different route into how we use our technology. In 2013, we thought about, it was time to, we had some big problems paying micro scholarships to the students in Afghanistan. So when I read an article in the New York Times by Mark Andreessen, so I said, why don't we use Bitcoin? So I started paying students in Afghanistan in Bitcoin. There is a nice book, it's called Age of Cryptocurrency. If you guys read it, you'll see my name there. And in 2014, I thought, well, you know what, we are exposing the identity of all those girls back in Afghanistan. Malala was shot in the face, it wasn't cool. So I said, why don't we just protect their identity? So we built Bitlanders, is a social media platform with avatars and nicknames. That is exactly the opposite of Facebook, because if you think about it, it's called Facebook, so you put your face. And in 2016, 2015 actually, one missing point here, the Afghan government took our schools away and they wouldn't give us any information. So I got pissed and I said, why don't we build something that can communicate directly with the girls? So we built chatbots. And in 2016, we thought, why not to do out of this an enterprise solution also for profit, so that we can continue our social good to a certain extent. So what we believe in is the democratization of artificial intelligence, but also from a human perspective. So I would look at artificial intelligence as a mean to an end. So the end is actually created this collaboration between humans and artificial intelligence. Even the format of this event, with all respect, it's a classic format in which I speak and you guys listen. But in reality, the treasure is what the people are listening to, thinking, and what they know. Frankly, it would take me hours or days or months to figure out everybody's skill set, if we have compatibility and everything else. So what we try to do is to empower organizations to connect human wisdom with what artificial intelligence today can give you. And our mission is basically, from a company perspective, so here I'm thinking of GE as a company, is actually to empower teams to work together, to empower departments to work together, to connect better with their clients, with the user base, and so on, so that there is this seamless relationship. So the value proposition that we provide as a company is actually transform our clients or our interlocutors almost like in the format of a brain, in which basically we look at every person, for example, in this room or within a company or clients as neurons of a brain that all contribute to a collective intelligence, utilizing artificial intelligence to the extent of the tools we are provided. Now, the reality is that, one more thing, we have offices, obviously I'm from Florence, so we have offices in Florence. Most of our developers are in Italy, in Dubai, Taiwan, and New York. I happen to reside in New York. So those are, we built about 1,500 different conversational AI solutions for companies and some also for individual people. And those are all the different use cases. But everything leads into one thing, that is the concept of machine learning. So we try everything we do to contribute to our clients to this, let's say, collective intelligence of the company. The biggest struggle for a company is to decide who owns that data. So, obviously, each one of you have your thoughts. Each one of you probably have a LinkedIn page. The question is, who owns the data on LinkedIn? Is you or LinkedIn itself? Or is your company, because you're stating that you work for a specific company and so on. So everything for us, from our perspective, we look at what the company or the client needs, and we choose some of the best available APIs, even from people that can present here. We combine, but the goal is to enrich this global and collective intelligence for the company itself, utilizing mostly also machine learning. So this is a little bit how, many companies, especially large companies, they work in silos. There are departments, there are heads, and they kind of struggle sometimes to move forward because they're so big. There is a theory which is called the two-pizza theory, in which you should work in a team where the entire team can be fed by two large pizzas. No Italian style, the American style. So it means you have maximum 10, 12 people. So when you have the type of team, obviously each team is connected virtually or materially with another team, and they contribute this collective intelligence, elevating the company to the next level or elevating the organization to the next level. So, for example, in my humble experience, having a social media platform that had over 300,000 filmmakers, over 40 million users visiting, building a social media platform then with 1 million registered users allowed me to build a very large amount of collective intelligence. And that's what we do. We use artificial intelligence basically to rationalize the way that we interface the people within and outside the team, the way that we categorize the information, and also to empower each little department to shine and to prove their best. One thing I noticed, for example, on the GE website, because you guys are GE basically for me, you are in 130 countries. So, I was looking up in the Middle East, and I noticed, for example, that Morocco is considered Middle East, and which is kind of ironic because it's actually very far from the Middle East. But on top of it, every single website, corporate website, was in English. And I'm thinking, I put myself in the shoes of a person in Morocco, and you go to the GE website, and there is no trace of Arabic. There's only at the bottom, there is a little email address of someone who hopefully can speak your language. So, that's what you use artificial intelligence sometimes, is also to empower touch points like that to build that kind of a relationship. Now, me being Italian, even if frankly, after 28 years in New York, I prefer browsing websites in English, when I see that there is an understanding of my language on the website, I change my feelings about the company itself even before I start browsing. Because when you ask someone to browse, you are actually taking their time. Instead, with artificial intelligence, you can actually price for their skill sets. You can actually make them feel at home, leverage some sentiments, use natural language understanding, create a relationship that goes beyond just the fact that you're selling them a product. Make sense? For example, I'm a 4th-degree black belt in judo, very proud of it. When I walk into the Under Armour store, nobody cares. They just want to sell me a shirt. But they're missing the point that in the last 25 years, I've also been coaching children, and if they knew and they cared about it, they would actually present me some products for children, because I coach about 250 children every Saturday morning. So they're missing a huge opportunity to establish a personal relationship with me and also move to the next level of relationship. So those are different ways in which our company helps or collaborates with clients. First of all, we start from taking the offline knowledge, can be a manual, can be a HR manual, can be an ebook, whatever it is that is printed, that is tedious to browse and to read, and we transform into a living being that is basically a conversational knowledge, like a chatbot that you can just talk to and, can educate you as well as you're learning from this person, okay? Then we facilitate communications inside and outside of the company, sitting next to platforms like Slack and Yammer. So, for example, we have a knowledge transfer or knowledge management platform that prize employees or team members for what they have been publishing within the company, avoid the duplication of content. So someone is very junior, is in Argentina, writes something very interesting about GDPR, and it doesn't come to the attention, his boss or her boss doesn't care really because that's not his department. It doesn't mean that this content should be lost and should be duplicated. So, what we use AI for is actually creating this knowledge, opportunity, communication, and also prize the people, inviting them to be part of teams that they're technically would never be able to be part of. And also we can create constant conversations within and outside of the teams so that basically we can combine the information and always contribute to the knowledge of the company. And the most important part for us is that the company is always reachable from within and outside. So if you are in the HR department, you have 300,000 employees. There are employees that might have brilliant ideas, or might suffer a depression, or might have a skill set. They are great soccer coaches. And the question is, how do you categorize those information and how you prize them for their skill set? Because life is not just about business, and it's also about who you are. There is a we say in Italy, Italians work to live, Americans live to work. So sometimes to succeed in today's global world, you really have to think about it. Not to say I'm from Tuscany, so, And this is something that really pissed me off because, you see, Tommaso Rulli is my brother. He sent me this thing from LinkedIn. Actually, I got it too, but I hadn't got to the email yet. And this is what it is. We do some work with reputation management. Basically, they want to do something sensational. They want to make sure everybody looked at it. So they send this turbine picture. It's a classic GE moment. In Florence, we have a company that is owned by GE that produce parts of this turbine. And they tell you that basically GE is now a behemoth, in which I didn't know this word, but it means a monstrous, giant or something. And then you click on it, all it does, it brings you to that Wall Street Journal article that everybody read. And then below it is actually someone who has been one of our clients, and they are prized for using artificial intelligence for a very narrow environment so that their reputation can jump up. 2 years ago, those guys were up there, So it's just a matter of sometimes how you use artificial intelligence. But the most important thing is now is just don't keep it like separate silos, opportunities, so that head of that department shines above the other guy. Is really about going back to this format that I was showing before, in which everybody has to interlock together and collaborate together. That's about it, okay? Thank you very much.
This is the section of the program reserved for companies starting in Q. Hi, I'm John. I'm from Quartz. Quartz is a business news service. We like to say that it's where the future gets its news. Quartz is qz.com, a daily email, a couple of daily emails actually, and a couple of apps that are pretty unique in the news world. And we have a really robust sort of research and development wing, and that's what I'm part of. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about one part of that, which is the Quartz AI Studio, We do a couple of different experimental things, but this is brand new. We're just starting it here this year. And it's an effort to bring AI to journalists, actually, to the newsrooms, to not just the companies, but to the reporters and editors in a newsroom. And so I'm going to get to there, but first I'm going to run through what's sort of a spectrum in my mind of machine learning in news. This will be a little bit of a review. It's really interesting to see a lot of these things pop up in the previous discussions. So we're going to sort of work across, and I don't know what the x-axis here, it's sort of money and research, something like that. But you'll see how it kind of unfolds. So one is using AI for tailored delivery. So this is what Facebook does, right? Facebook is using your information and what's happening in the world and using machine learning to give you your news feed, right? So at Quartz, we're using this. Here you can see this recommended stories. So this is what comes after you read a story. So this story above this line was a story about solar panels, and the machine learning system is working in the background to think, to say, okay, which stories will I recommend based on the content of that story? This is not at this point tailored to you individually. It's actually tailored to the story that was above, right? And then looks in our library and says, what makes the most sense, what's most timely, what's most relevant. So we're using machine learning to do that. This used to be done based on an algorithm that was just sort of what's most popular and maybe some keywords, some tagging. And we did an A/B test to see what would work better. And the machine learning system beat out any of the sort of popularity metrics pretty easily. So that's what we're doing now. BuzzFeed, so I'm bringing in some other media organizations too. We're not associated with BuzzFeed, I'll just say. But so BuzzFeed has been doing machine learning on different things. You know, they're very effective at this. And I like this quote: "We will find clusters that show people who are interested in Jennifer Lawrence are also interested in penguins." So they're using this to help decide which polls are done and things like that. So using data science, using machine learning to find these kinds of clusters. So moving down the timeline up here is the next sort of step in sort of automation and machine learning, and that is automation at scale. This is actually, when you hear about journalists being replaced by AI, everybody's sort of scared about that. I don't think that's happening anytime soon, but this is an example, sort of an earlier example of sort of using a version of AI. So this is a real story at the Los Angeles Times website. And if you look at the bottom of this story, so the story says a shallow magnitude 3.2 earthquake was reported Sunday morning, 11 miles from Yosemite Valley, and it's a news story about an earthquake, which happens a lot in California. And at the bottom, you'll see it says, this information comes from the USGS Earthquake Notification Service, and this post was created by an algorithm. So this was actually written by a computer, but you can sort of see how it was done, right? A blank magnitude blank earthquake was reported blank miles from blank, right? It's a little bit like Mad Libs. The AI has gone in and sort of pulled out the details from the data feed at USGS and written a story about this. And as was mentioned earlier, Bloomberg, the Associated Press, some other organizations are using this to write earnings report stories. So here you can see this, J. Jill reported Thursday, fourth quarter profit. So this is reading earnings reports, which can be pretty complicated, and generating a story. And again, at the bottom it says this story was generated by Automated Insights, which you mentioned. And Lisa Gibbs, who works at the Associated Press, who has helped make this happen, explains that a lot of people are going to go to something like Yahoo Finance and read about J. Jill because they have stock in this. This won't necessarily appear in a local newspaper, but there's so much information out there that needs to be consumed by people who might not be experts. They might not have Bloomberg terminals. They might need it turned into English, and this is the clientele that they're looking for. So another way we're using AI, this is one of our apps. is in conversational interfaces, which you've also heard about from Hugging Face and others. And really it's about, this is a very unique app that we have where we provide news in sort of this chat format, and you can click an emoji and you can sort of move through the news stories. What we've moved on to doing this, not only here, but also on Facebook and other platforms, is in sort of similar to what Hugging Face is doing, and that is allowing people to talk to us. So then they can, if they talk to us, we have to understand what they're saying. So we're using natural language understanding to figure out what they're saying and how we might redirect them or just answer their quick little question. So AI is being used in this sort of chat system. Another place where we're using that kind of natural language understanding is in a service that we actually provide. We teamed up with a company called Document Cloud, it's a nonprofit actually, to create Quackbot. So this is Slack. You guys use Slack. In journalism, like 98% of journalists use Slack in the United States. So this is where we live, right? We live in this world. And so here I can say, hey, Quackbot, I'm DMing Quackbot, can I get data about agriculture? And Quackbot says, yeah, just a second, and goes to the spreadsheet where we have sort of our trusted data sources on like hundreds of different things, but I don't have to remember the URL for that thing, and I don't have to go search it. I'm living in Slack anyway, and I can just ask Quackbot. So this is a conversational interface, which actually is also part of the fourth thing that I'm going to talk about, which is reporter tools, right? So the more that we can teach Quackbot to do things and to just understand natural language questions and then solve the problems of journalists, the better off we are. And so that's what we're working on right now. But what the AI studio is doing is actually going a little bit further, and that is really teaching journalists how to use machine learning to do research for stories. So we've moved from like tailored delivery and like automation to really using machine learning as a tool. And a lot of companies and industries are using these tools and will have them at their desk and such. Journalism hasn't done a lot of that. It used to be the joke in journalism was you went into journalism because you were bad at math. We don't do that anymore. Obviously, there are a lot of great financial journalists, a lot of data science journalists, and now we're getting to the point where they're also using machine learning, and that's what we're trying to help with. This is one of my favorite stories. BuzzFeed News trained a computer to search for hidden spy planes. So there are all of these sort of shadow companies, contractors in the US that are providing surveillance to sheriff's departments, the military, etc. They wanted to know who are these companies. Let's go find out who has the contract to surveil from the air American citizens. That was their story. If you call up the government and say, hey, can you tell me who your secret companies are? They're going to say no. So they went in and they bought 3.5 months worth of flight-aware data from a flight tracking company, which you can do. It's all public information. And they were able to teach a computer to look for basically these patterns, right? So you can imagine tens of thousands of flights in this data. What they said is, okay, computer, here are the flight patterns of 100 planes that we know are surveillance planes. They're DHS planes, they're NYPD planes. We know that, there's no secret there. Go find more like this in this stack of flights. And it came back with a whole bunch of subcontractors that they could do investigations on. And so that was how they went into it. They used an algorithm called random forests to do this, which is something that if you say random forest to most journalists, they will have no idea what you're talking about, and we're going to try to change that. My favorite part of the story is that the algorithm also found a bunch of skydiving companies. Right? Because what do skydiving companies do? They go up, they fly around in circles, and then they go back down, which is sort of beautiful to me because it also says the journalist is still necessary, right? You have to go through and say, oh, skydiving company, right, probably not spying. So the plan for the AI studio, and this was at all possible because we got a grant from the Knight Foundation to do this, is to do 6 newsroom investigations in 2019. We're not just doing that at Quartz, we're doing it with other news organizations. We're actually working this week to line up those collaborations. And the idea is that, well, part of it is that I don't know that we have 6 investigations at Quartz that would be able to benefit from machine learning, but we know lots of people who have lots of data and would like to do more stories. In the process of doing that, we're documenting it. We actually are going to be hiring somebody to just help us document the process for each of those stories, not just for transparency, which a lot of news organizations do. They say, here's how we did the story, but really with an eye to say, hey, you reporter in a medium or smaller newsroom, if you want to do something like this too, here's how you can do it. Here's how we did it. Here's how you can do it, or here's how you can get help to do it. And in the end, we're going to have free tools and guides that we're publishing online. We'll publish some after every story, but then at the end, we'll put it all together. And it's part of our interest as a company, but also part of our mandate under the grant to make that all public. So it's going to be tailored for journalists, but I'll tell you that if a journalist can do it, you can too. Like, we're all sort of journalists of a sort, right? So those are going to be out and public and available at the end of the year. If you're interested and you want to follow this, just send me a note at bots@qz.com. We'll throw you on a little mailing list that we're keeping to keep people posted. And if you have a project, let us know.